Welcome to Grief, Grace, and Gratitude. I'm your host, Rhonda Kemp. On this podcast, we will be sharing our grief journeys with one another. Each one of our guests will talk about the loved ones they've lost to overdose, as well as the impact of substance use disorder. As you listen, you could write down and share with us a question or discussion topic that you would like to see us include in our future episodes. Just as it says in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. My hope is to bring comfort to those who are crushed in spirit. As we talk about the shame of addiction and devastation of loss, we want you to learn how to survive and even thrive while navigating through the difficulty of grief. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have a guest on that I've met in Colorado Springs, and her name is Sandy Williams, and I'm very happy to have her on the podcast. It takes a lot of courage to speak about our children. In this case, Sandy has a son that passed away, so we're going to let her introduce herself and tell us how she's doing on her grief journey. So go ahead, Sandy, and tell us a little bit about you and your son.
Hi, and thank you, Rhonda, for having me on the show. It's not an easy journey for anybody, so I do appreciate the opportunity to share my story and my son's story. My son, Austin, passed away in 2023 in June of fentanyl overdose. He was one of 4 children. I have 4 kids. I've been a single mom since I was 16. So my identity was being a mom, so that's been tested, and relearning yourself and your identity has been a difficult journey. It's been a year and a half of hard work, but I have a lot of support, and I really want to share today the importance of taking advantage of the resources that are available, trying every single one that you can, because something might help. And the only way you're going to know is if you try everything. So I'm really glad to be here and share what
I know
I've
you've
tried.
got a lot of wisdom to share, and unfortunately, none of us ever want to be in this position, but life will deal things to you that are so earth-shattering in this case, and you have to find a way to keep moving because you have other children that depend on you. You have loved ones. You have what God, His will in your life of what He has laid out for us, both of us. So I just honor what you're doing. And I know when I met you last year, you're probably in a different place even now because, 6, 8 months can make a lot of difference. So Austin was how old when he passed?
He was 24 years old. He has a son who is now 6 years old. So it's been a difficult road for all of us, but yeah, I'm very grateful for everybody that has stuck around. We know that journey as well.
Having a son like that for 24 years, is not long enough, but it's also a gift. And tell us a little bit about him. What did he like?
Yeah, it's funny. Austin, we were very close. I'm close with all of my kids, and Austin and I had a very unique relationship. We loved to prank each other, have a good time, and laugh. And he was very smart, very, very smart. He graduated high school at 16 years old at the end of 10th grade. Went on to get his HVAC certification, was a foreman, making really good money. Had his baby, had a girlfriend, they were engaged, and life was just falling into place for him. He moved out of my house, they got their own place and started on their life and their journey. And I think he was about 20 years old when he moved out. And then at 21, he was working 16-hour days in a trade. He was tired and unfocused. And Austin had ADHD when he was little. So I know that focus and stuff was difficult. And I think there is addiction in our family, and his dad is an addict. And so he has been predisposed to that. So when Austin was a teenager and everything, he never did drugs. He never smoked. He never marijuana, like nothing. He was just a very motivated, great kid. He set a goal. He wanted to do something. He did it. This kid would come. I think he should have went into engineering. I think he could make something out of anything. He would be like, "Oh, you have 3 oatmeal containers that are empty. Can I use them? I'm going to make some speakers." And they would work, and he'd make them, and it just always inventing and putting a smile on people's face. And he went to work one day and was having a rough day, and then those happened, and somebody offered him a pill to help him focus while he was at work. And from there, he just spiraled. It was one after another, and it helped him get through the day, and he kept doing it. About a year into his addiction, and he was 22 years old, he came to me and told me, "Mom, I have a problem." He's like, "I've been doing this to get through work," and that's when he told me how it happened. And he's like, "I'm really struggling and I don't know what to do." So we used every resource we could find: rehabs, detox centers, therapy. I took him to the emergency room a few times, trying to get any help that we could. Ultimately, the drugs caused him to make some bad decisions. With the addiction, his choices got worse. It came to a point where he was making choices that derailed his life, not just his health and his sobriety and his mental health, but his whole life. He lost his job, he lost his place to live, got into some legal trouble, and was in and out of jail. So watching him spiral from the time he started doing the drugs to the time he died was probably about 3 years. And it was that fast. His life just derailed there. And I prayed and I wanted him to find the help he needed. And I tried everything I could to get him the help he needed. But they have to be ready, willing, and able to make those choices. And that's the part that I a lot of people, when you lose a child, you struggle with that guilt of, what if I had done this? Well, I should have done this instead. I've not had that battle myself. Who knows? It may come. Maybe this is a roller coaster. But as of right now, I haven't had that battle of those what ifs, because I know we had a great relationship. He trusted me. He came and told me. He asked for help. I supported him. I gave him the help. In the end, I did have to create those boundaries and not enable him, but was still there, always would answer every phone call in the middle of the night, pick them up when they need to be picked up. I stopped, giving him a place to stay when he was in that position. I'm like, if you're going to do it, you have to find somewhere else to do that. I can't watch you do that. I can't see you do this, but I'm here if you need the help. And I think in my mind, I know, in my heart, I know I did everything that I could, everything in my power, but it didn't come down to what I could or should have done. My choices weren't what caused this. He made those choices, and he had the resources and the support he needed. But for whatever reason, that wasn't his path. That wasn't his journey. That leads me to, I hear a lot of people angry with God, and I'm very new on my spiritual journey. Actually, the Hope After Loss retreat, when I attended with you guys, we went to that church at the end of that retreat, and we were all sitting there, and that service happened to be about loss and addiction. I mean, the odds of that happening, it was like I was meant to hear that. And I've gone every weekend since. I've delved into it. I've tried, I've started that journey in that relationship because there's hope there. There's hope there. And if God is forgiving and promises beauty in an afterlife, and we're all going to meet again, that hope is there. So there's not been a single second that I question why this happened. I don't have to know why it happened. It happened for a reason, and there's a purpose in this. And that's what my goal is, to find the purpose in this. And one of my favorite verses or scriptures that I like to read is Isaiah 53:11. the sacrifice that he made was going to be for the good of somebody in the long run. I don't think my son's, not Jesus. He's not going to save somebody, but his story may. And if that's the purpose, that's what I'm drawn to, then I need to spread that word and get that word out there so other people can find the purpose in it, because we are not meant to understand it right now. We don't have to understand it. And honestly, I'm never going to accept it. I'll never accept my son is gone, but I need to learn to live with that right now. And I have peace with that. And I have comfort in that. And it is like a warm blanket of just comfort in knowing this isn't the end. I'll see him again. And I just have to continue on right now and share his story in hopes that it will save somebody else and
So
there's a purpose
amazing.
to it.
That's the whole key to it in the healing is trusting God, that He has sovereignty over everything. He knows what's going to
Mhm.
happen. He allows things to happen. I don't know that He causes it to happen,
Yeah.
but He does. It has to go through Him before it can happen to His
Mhm.
children. And knowing that we haven't forever with our kids and our Lord would not want their decisions and addiction to stop us from having our life. And that took me a long time to understand
Mhm.
that because, like you said, our identity is in being moms. And when that's taken away in that one person, you feel like, what now?
Yeah.
What do? And
Mhm.
there is a purpose to this pain that we have. And do you do anything? I know it hasn't been that long since you lost Austin, but is there any way you found to honor him in certain ways? Do you have any rituals or things you try to do?
Not just yet. I think I'm still very much on the roller coaster of the beginning of it. I think I was on autopilot for a very long time. And just to get through the day, you block everything out. You don't remember things. You're there, but you're not there. And when he first died, I jumped into the research. I wanted to know, why is this grief feel different than any other grief? I've lost people. I've lost my mom. I've lost people I've loved. And this grief was not like that. And I wanted to know why. Why is this grief physical? Why can my brain no longer work and function? And so I dived in very quickly and wanted to know the reason behind it in the research. And it changes your brain. It changes the way you function. And I wanted to know why and how to fix that. And so I started going to therapy, and I went through a few therapists until I found the right one. And I started doing EMDR about 3 months ago. So now I am able to think about my son and have those memories, and they're not triggers. They don't make me go off the deep end and cry the rest of the day. I can have those memories, acknowledge those memories, and still function throughout the day. So the EMDR has been incredibly helpful for me in that way, because it's a lonely thing. This grief is lonely because there are other people that have grief who have lost a child, even people who have lost a child in the same way you have. But nobody's grief is like yours. It's all unique because our child was our child. Nobody else in this world was his mother, just me. Nobody else lost that that person, that bond except me. So it's a lonely journey, but we don't have to face it alone. There's a lot of people and resources, and the more we understand about it, I think the more we talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about death. Nobody wants to understand death. They want to pretend it's not going to happen. We all have to face it. It's going to hit us in the face one day. And I need to get ahead of that. That's just the way my brain works. I need to know the why, the how. A little bit of a control freak, maybe. But, the one thing I'm grateful is I don't have that feeling of the need to control the why. Why did he die? I understand that. I don't know the reason behind it, but I understand that there's a journey behind it, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waiting for the answer. I don't have to have the answer right now. I just need to have the answers on how to walk through each day with that patience that's going to be needed for the rest of my life.
Like the EMDR and the therapy is kind of getting your brain back to where you want.
It is. It is. I have it's I kind of it's switched off my autopilot and brought on the emotion. At first, I was very emotional, and I think when you come out of autopilot, you are forced to recognize those feelings and cope with them. So it was very difficult the first couple of months, but now I think it is very helpful, and it's been a good experience for me. Just the outlet to talk, and nobody, talking to a therapist in general, I think they're not coming back with any opinions or feedback. It's even if it's just you talking and it's talk therapy, you're getting it out and you're not bottling it up. Because that's the thing I had the hardest time was the more you try and control your emotions and you try and fight back the tears so you can get through your work day, the more I would have physical symptoms. So I needed to find that balance because I would find myself at work and I'm working and I'm doing my job and the tears are just flowing for no reason, not necessarily thinking about them. Just my body is like, nope, you're ignoring me. You're ignoring these thoughts. You're going to feel them. And that's what happened at first. But having done the research, and I did a lot of research on it, I knew that was going to happen. I was prepared to get emotional because your brain's starting to work again. Things are clicking. You're having memories. So I was prepared. So I think I handled it better because of the amount
Wow.
of research I
When you
did.
talk about Austin being smart, I
Mhm.
think he got it from his mom.
And knowledge is power, and I think nobody wants to walk in this journey, and nobody wants to accept it, but we have to learn to live with it. And the way I feel, like I always feel like I'm in like two different mindsets, two realities. I feel one way, but I'm acting and being a different way. You have to find that middle ground and you have to be able to merge them and have a good balance. Otherwise, I'd never get out of bed. If I did, that's what I want to do. I want to stay in bed. I want to cry. I want to stay in bed. I don't want to wake up, but I have other kids. I'm still a mom. I'm still a grandma. I have responsibilities.
Hmm.
So I had to figure out what I could do to be able to function again. And I'm starting to
No.
get that back after a year and a half.
Yes.
I still can't read. I can't read a book. I can barely write a paragraph, but I'm starting to focus better. So that's a start.
I know that
Mhm.
some people, including myself for a while, just wanted to go back to their other life, the life before the loss, like I want to be that person
Mhm.
again. And I had to accept I'm not going to be that person. This changes everything. And some things I see in myself and I see in other moms that have lost a child that they have a better version of their self.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I think I recognize that. And I think that's part of the thing is being in the moment to stay out of autopilot. There's some tools I use to be in the moment and bring myself back to the moment because paying attention and just being aware, I've noticed my patience has grown, my compassion for people have grown. I don't get, the road rage incident. If somebody I'm driving with is getting mad, I'm like, hey, they could have just gotten the worst call of their entire life. And that's why they're driving all crazy. We don't know. We don't need to know. You just give that person that benefit of the doubt. There might be something going on and
Yep.
give that grace. And I have noticed that with myself significantly, just wanting to be present in the moment. Today, I was leaving work and a lady was sitting on the steps and she looked like she was, not doing well. But I said hi to her as I was leaving work and she looked at me and she's like, hi, you are the first person that has said hi to me and I've been sitting here for an hour. And so I had a conversation with her and I'm like, it's just about paying attention to people and just sharing some form of energy that you put out of grace, gratitude, love, compassion. Just sharing that because we don't see enough of it in the world. And I think walking around as a grieving parent, I feel like I have a target on me. Like I feel like everybody can look at me and just know there's something wrong. You know, it just feels like you're clothed in just this negative energy because even when we're functioning, when we're living our life, doing something fun, happy, we are crying inside. There's an internal scream that never goes away. No matter who you're looking at, what you're looking at, there's an image of your child, front and foremost. And you have to learn to navigate and move with that scream and that image. And God forbid for those parents who witness their child's loss, those images that they have to live with for the rest of their life. We saw our child lifeless. That is chronic trauma that we are going to live with for the rest of our life. But I can't let that hold me down. I need to just let that be the reason I keep going because I want to give other parents, other moms, dads who are in that beginning journey some hope because we don't feel like it's ever going to get better. We don't feel like it's going to go away and we're going to be able to function again. We don't want to live sometime. And I'm not going to say it gets better. I think this pain will be with us for the rest of our lives, but we do learn to live with it. We learn to get up and put our shoes on and do what we need to do because what other choice do we have?
We don't.
I mean,
And I think over
yeah.
time it softens. We can compartmentalize it.
Mhm.
We can take it with us like you put on
Mhm.
your pants and your shirt. It's just part of who you are.
Mhm.
Hopefully it
Yeah.
makes you more intentional. It makes you realize these small
Mhm.
things that most people spend 90% of their energy on are just not worth it. Like you said, you were
Mhm.
human to that lady sitting there and you recognized her and that was important to her. That made
Mhm.
her feel different. And you have
Yeah.
the ability to see that. And not that, grief is a great thing, but if we can look at what God can do to redeem it and what he can do in us, the Bible's full of scripture that says the more you suffer, the
Yeah.
closer you are to him. And that never made a lot of sense to
Mhm.
me. It's like, why do I have to suffer to get to know God? But I think it's because we depend and we need him so badly. There's no way out of
Yeah.
it without leaning on him for me. And
Yeah, and somebody said that to me right after he died. Somebody had given me ticket or they had bought me something for a grief group that I could go to. And it was a faith-based affiliated grief group. And I was not at that time. I had gone to church, but I was not in that journey. And I went to 2 sessions and then somebody in that grief group said to me, I just don't think anybody could get through this without God. And I never went back to that grief group after that because I wasn't in that journey. I didn't have that relationship with God at that time. And that deterred me. But, I kept going and I still prayed. I prayed every day. And it was just for comfort, not for God, tell me why. God, why did this happen? It wasn't those cries of just understanding. It was just cries for comfort, prayers for comfort. I just give me some peace during this time because I wasn't looking for answers. I was just looking for some peace so that I could go on. I stopped going to that grief group at that time, but like, I went to that retreat with you guys and we went to church and now I've been going like it was meant to be in my life and finding God and having that relationship. That was a journey that I needed to be on and it was going to happen one way or another, whether I wanted it to or not. So I recognize that and I take advantage of that every day. The one thing that gets me through every day, I pray on my way to work. every morning because it's the only time I'm by myself. And I feel like I put on the music and I pray. And on the days that I don't do that for whatever reason, I don't have good day. Because I pray for that comfort every morning. Give me the strength and some comfort to get through this day. And it does. And I feel it. And that is what gets me going every day because we know our first thoughts when we wake up is our child. And you don't want to get up out of bed, but that energy comes from somewhere because we can't muster it up on our own. It doesn't come from us. Well, there's no way I have that energy, but it's coming from somewhere. So I have to believe that I'm on the right path. And yeah, I have faith in the reasons and the journey. I have faith that one day I will understand it. And I'm going to be patient.
It's a great testimony. And I know gratitude plays a big part of every little day. Every day something small has to come along that we can find gratitude in. I mean, that also brings
Mhm.
us peace. And you have 3 children, you have still living, and you have grandchildren. You're surrounded by people that need you and love you.
Yes, and I think that's one of the thing. I'm in a lot of grief groups on Facebook and all these things, and a lot of people they feel so alone, and we lose a lot of people in our life. And people come who maybe were an acquaintance, and now all of a sudden that's your person that checks in with you all the time. And the people you love who you thought were going to be there, they're not there anymore, and that happens a lot. And for me, I am very lucky and very grateful for the people that I have in my life because I have a lot of siblings. I'm the oldest of 9, and I have a lot of friends and a lot of family. I am truly grateful to have them, but the one thing people want to live in this alone. And if you don't have the support and you don't have the family or the friends that are going to show up, you reach out to the people who are going through this grief as well, because you don't have to talk. You're reading their stories and you will feel that shared grief. And it's isolating at first because you think no one understands. They didn't love their kid as much as I love my kid. They didn't have the relationship with their kid that I have with my kid. None of that matters. It's all unique. It's not a contest. We all lost our child and we are all in pain and suffering. But just having that person that understands the magnitude, the severity of the grief, that's what's important. Somebody who knows that just intense pain that comes with child loss. That's where you're going to find your person. That's where you're going to find your support. And I really tell people that are in the very beginning, find your people that are going to lift you up in the days you don't want to be around anybody. Accept the people who are coming without you wanting them there. Just accept them because they're there for a reason and they want to
Yeah, and
help
you're
you.
not meant to do it alone. That's for sure. We are not people that heal by ourselves. And the
No.
challenge is getting from that day one to year and a half, 2 years, 2.5, and know it's going to take different forms, and know it's going to take different shapes. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like you said, it's an up and down roller coaster. But you sound like
It
you
is.
found some really good resources, and I'm just thrilled that you are doing better. You're doing better, and you're helping other people do that
Yeah.
today.
Today.
So
Today.
if you were going to give someone
Yeah.
advice
Yeah.
that has a son in addiction, if you could say a few words, what would be your advice to a mom that's just lost in that?
Sometimes I think watching my son go through the addiction for 3 years, watching his life fall apart, I sometimes feel like that was harder on me than actually getting that phone call that he was gone. We were grieving before we were grieving, is how it was for me. And if I was to give advice to somebody in that moment right then, I would tell them, no matter what, you have to just let them know that you are there. Just be there emotionally. Don't lecture. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. Don't judge them. Do the research. Understand why they have an addiction. Understand what is addiction. We all, so many times people think, oh, they're an addict. They're, good riddance. They're gone. That's what I feel like when I tell somebody my son died from addiction. At first, when you say your son died, you get that look of sympathy from them. And then when you say, oh, by addiction, it's like almost for me it's probably in my mind, but I feel like I'm looking at them and it's the, oh, well, good riddance, just another addict off the street. And don't look at your child like that. I'm choosing right now not to remember my son for those last 3 years because he had an addiction. That was a part of his life. It wasn't who he was. It was something that took control of his brain, and he was no longer in control. And as long as I was there to offer him the support when he needed it, when he was ready, and I'm not saying enable, not saying put a roof over their head and give them a place to do their drugs, saying make sure that they're aware of the support and the resources and the love. And even if it is a small milestone of, I didn't get high today, celebrate that today. Celebrate that. Give them that hope and that the knowledge that they can do it 1 minute at a time. For some addicts, it's difficult, but I think research, understand where your child is, and don't give up. Don't give up. You keep fighting and you utilize every resource there is. And that's all we can do is take advantage of what's out there. And sometimes it's very hard. There's a lot of cities and communities that don't have resources for addiction.
Yeah.
Start one. Figure it out. Like network. Find the people who are on the same page as you. Find those resources because you're not suffering alone. Other people need them too. So if you can't find them, be that person who creates that voice and makes a
Great
change.
advice. And a lot of times it's just ignorance that people don't understand what the disease is. They just look at them as bad people. And we know our kids were
Mm-hmm.
not bad people. They made
Mm-hmm.
bad choices
Yeah.
because the disease took over their brain, but what great kids they were. I just see that over and over and over.
Yes.
High achievers, smart,
Mm-hmm.
funny. Everyone's drawn
Mm-hmm.
to them, great personalities, would give you the shirt.
Addiction does not discriminate. It does not discriminate. It can hit anybody
Yeah.
and in many different
Well, he
ways.
sounds like someone that you can be really proud of. And I'm sure he's proud of you. If he has, I believe he can see your life. And I've had
Mm-hmm.
many signs that my daughter's still around, just her presence. And not
Mm-hmm.
physically, but in a lot of other ways. She's here.
Yeah.
And I know she is proud of me for just moving forward and doing the best
Mm-hmm.
I can. And so the therapy helps you. If you were going to choose one thing that you could tell someone to do, would it be, you said find your people. So maybe just search out grief groups on Facebook or Instagram or
Mm-hmm.
podcasts like this. And not every church is adapting to grief, but there's a lot of church programs probably out there that do offer compassionate grief groups, and faith-based is the way to go
Yeah.
because that component is so
Mhm.
important.
The hope. Yeah.
Well, I'm very
Mm.
proud of what you're doing and
Yeah.
helping yourself and taking care of your family and your plant.
Yes.
I know you're working.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I have gone a little overboard. That was probably something I was trying to fill a void, fill a hole. So I overconsumed in a hobby and trying to keep my mind occupied. But yeah, he's here around there. So and I do get those signs often from him, a lot. And I feel his energy. And I always say his body may be gone, but his energy is still here. And I can feel it every day.
Yeah, we call them God winks.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 I do have
Oh,
a
I'd
picture
like to
of
see
my
that.
son here.
Okay, there's Austin. Is he around 24 at the he's got a blue ribbon on his chest there.
That was at his baby shower before his baby was born. So he was I think 19 in that picture.
You have a little piece of him in his son
Yeah,
too.
I do. And I'm so grateful for that. I have him a lot every weekend and sometimes more often. And I'm very grateful for him.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that you have a positive energy about you, and it's still just been a short time, but you've been busy getting to getting out there and finding out what you need, and it's just a great testimony
Hmm.
to show your strength. And it's not always our strength. I think it's the strength that we get from God, that I mean in Psalms there's so many scriptures that says he's near to the brokenhearted. We
Yes.
do just have energy sometimes in that, knowing that we're not doing this by ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think I could get through it by myself. I don't. I barely have the energy to get up and function on a daily basis. So I know this energy isn't coming from within me. It's definitely not. It is a higher power.
So, what brings you joy now
Hmm.
besides your family? Do you have anything else that you look forward to in the future that you'd like to accomplish?
I am actually. I have decided I'm going to pursue going back to school to do grief
Oh,
counseling. I was studying psychology for a while. I wanted to be a counselor, but now I'm thinking I would like to focus on grief counseling, loss of a child, specifically because it took me a long time to find the right person for me. And, they don't like to divulge that personal information about themselves, but I think it's so important because my mindset and what deterred me from looking for therapy was how is somebody who's never felt this going to tell me how to get better? They cannot even understand because as much as you think you can imagine what it would be like for your child to die, and we've all said that if my child ever died, I wouldn't be able to survive. I would not be able to survive. And we all think that. And then when you're going to therapy and you're looking for somebody to help you learn to live with that, for them not to understand your feelings and the gravity of the physicalness of it, I I I think it's hard to connect, and I think people give up and they stop going to therapy because you are faced with that even more loneliness because you are trying to get help from a professional and they don't understand where you're coming from. So I think there's a need for it and just death in general and how we approach it as a society. We ignore it. We don't want to talk about it. People get scared, uncomfortable. I want to make it acceptable to talk about, acceptable to have a bad day when you need to have a bad day. We've lost our child. We don't need to cover it up when we're having a bad day. It should be acknowledged. Grief
and
should be
so many
acknowledged.
people will talk to you after you talk. Like I went to a chiropractor here in town, and 3 years, I never knew anything about his family, and after I lost Lacey, he was like, "Well, I have addiction in my family too. 2 of my sons are using." So, that's all this
Mhm.
secrecy and shame and the
Yeah,
stigma of even letting someone
yeah.
know about it. So, with
Mhm.
our testimonies and our boldness to say, "Yeah, my daughter died of an overdose of opioids," that's important to let people know it's okay to talk about it.
Mm.
It's going normal.
Yeah. 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 And we do get that feedback. I have had somebody ask me if I'm ashamed of telling people how my son died. Like that. Ashamed of what? Ashamed of what? That something bad took a hold of my son and he lost his life? He didn't make that decision. A drug-induced mindset made that decision, and there's no shame, and it's an epidemic now. We need to get ahead of it, and if we're not talking about it, we're not gonna
The
get ahead of it.
awareness and just the ability to
Mhm,
share and don't hide your story.
mhm,
So I just have so much
yeah,
respect for you, and you being a counselor, I can't think of anything better. In fact, when you first started this podcast talking to me, I was like, I can see her as a grief counselor in my mind. I really said that because you just have so many
Yeah.
right answers for people, and you did the work, and you got busy learning what can help you, and it's amazing.
Education, figuring out. And like I said, I've tried everything, every single suggestion somebody offered. I was trying it, and 99 things didn't work for me, but one did. And you just have to keep trying, and you have to do your research and learn about it and learn why you're grieving the way you are so that you can understand how to react to it.
Well, you're impressive, and I'm so thrilled that you came on. After, some time passes, we might do this again, and you can kind of fill us in on.
I was thinking about that. Actually, I was going to tell you, I'd love to, like, in a year from now, come back and just see that difference of where I am, where you are, and hopefully have some positive updates and some changes in this
Yeah,
world
hopefully our
by
world
then.
it gets better. That's
Mhm.
what I pray for too every day, that people learn to, like you said, if you don't have something there that helps you start something. And a lot of us grieving moms and dads have started different profits, and
Mhm.
I'm speaking to
Mhm.
the legislature and different aspects, and there's all kinds that need to be done.
Make a
So
difference.
thank you, Sandy, for being so open and transparent and so wise. And I know whoever listens to this will hear what you're saying, and maybe they'll jump out there and start finding some resources for themselves, and just knowing that God has them in the palm of his hands. And that's the best place we can be.
Mhm.
There's no better place. And if it takes
Yep.
this to get there, that's maybe
Mhm.
his plan too. I don't know. I'm like you, I don't. But
And
today we
patience. Wait, patience, and someday we will know.
okay, well, we'll talk in a year,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll see you
Mhm.
before then. But we have retreats,
Okay.
so maybe we'll meet up again in one of those.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself and those beautiful grandkids and your children, and I just am so grateful for you to be on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I am so grateful for your podcast and you spreading this word and awareness, and it's pivotal.
Well, it's what we're supposed to do, and I do
Yeah.
it for Lacey. I always think Lacey would be she was so talented when it came to just comfortable with everybody, every situation.
Yeah.
She wasn't afraid of anything. So, I take on some of her traits
Mhm.
when I get to doubting myself. So we just take on that
Yeah.
role because our kids need a voice.
Mhm.
Take care of
They do.
yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for being a part of the Grief, Grace, and Gratitude community. Remember, God has not forgotten you, your dreams, or your broken heart. Join us for our next episode, available wherever you listen to podcasts. To help us reach more people, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media. What will you trust God with today?